Hello, this is Dr. Ugar, and I am with Sharon and David Hoover, and they're going to talk to us about the Synod, the 2021-2023 Synod that Pope Francis is initiating on a global level. So please do tell us.
Hello, we're really glad to be here with you and glad to talk about this Synod. Pope Francis, I started to say President Francis. Pope Francis opened the Synod this weekend, and it was 2 years ago, 2019, that he called for this Synod. And so near as I can understand, the Synod would be somewhat similar to Vatican II, except that it's going to include Catholics all over the world. All right. But Pope Francis is looking for the kind of the grassroots movement people to begin to speak up for about their desires and their wants, their needs in the church. What are the things that the church needs, or that the people of the church needs? I've heard that this process could change the whole way that the church makes decisions. So it could really just take away this whole clericalism stuff, the decisions made at the top, and create this foundation of decisions being made at the bottom. I need to pause because I seldom give him time to talk, but I'm going to give a moment for him to say something before I go on.
You know, we might look at this in the context of, I think a lot of us would probably agree that the shadow side of the Catholic tradition has been a shadow side around power and centralization. You know, and I think this is kind of Pope Francis is really lifting up another approach to some kind of a process whereby a larger truth and creativity might be released in the church and in the world through the church. And so it's a unique kind of process that he's talking about. As he says, he's not talking about a parliament. He's not talking about an opinion poll. He's not talking about another strategy for forging agreements. He's really talking about, I would say, kind of a spirituality. Really, the Synod reflects a kind of profound spirituality of trust that the Spirit might have more to say to us than our calculating minds and our adversarial, pitted against each other opinions would allow. And so he's talking about the Synod as creating a kind of open space where the Spirit might come and be present and release truth in surprising kind of ways. And so he's talking about including times of silence and prayer and receptivity, which doesn't characterize a lot of our gatherings. So he really has a vision of a sort of unique spirituality that he hopes to get beneath all the ideologies and hidden agendas that we put into play and struggle with against each other, and somehow thereby crowd out the Spirit's voice. He's trying to create a structure and a process and a space where the Spirit's activity will allow us to move forward to new creative possibilities beyond the places that were stuck in old, repeated oppositional patterns. So it's a very exciting vision of a different way of allowing a larger truth to enter into our discussions with each other as church. So I just throw that out as kind of an initial kind of spiritual vision that I think he's bringing to this.
Aren't you glad I let him talk?
Yes, I am. So you said that the way he frames it, it's not like I guess the Vatican II Council with Pope John Paul the 23rd. Is that what you said, or did I?
I said it was going to be somewhat similar to that, but I think
it was going to be similar.
I think I meant the impact would be similar. Okay, not the way it's formulated,
not the process,
but the
because the shift is there.
Yeah,
So
right.
with the Vatican II, the
Right,
focus was the clerics making choices, and now the transition is the laity
right,
in
right,
conversation with the clerics or the priests.
right. So my understanding from just the little bit that I've researched it is that the Vatican has spent the last 2 years preparing for this process that is global. So it's happening, and my understanding is that it's really happening in places like Africa and South America and places like that. But there's it, so they've put together this process. I was even looking at, they've got the forms that you can, pass out, that people fill out in order to join. And I mean, it's all this kind of stuff. But the process would be, my understanding is that there would be small groups who would dialogue together. And I don't know if you read Fratelli Tutti, but one of his main things in Fratelli Tutti was dialogue, the need for dialogue,
Yeah.
the need. So in this synod, the small groups would dialogue about the questions that will be given to the groups to talk about, that I think are supposed to surface the needs, the wants, the desires of the people for how the church would be. And then out of that, he said, or somebody recently, it wasn't him, it was one of the other cardinals, said, we don't need, what did he say? Something, we don't need a church, we don't need something about a reformed church, but that isn't the word. We need a different church. We actually need
Wow.
a whole different kind of format. So it's like, so I think Pope Francis is hoping, if we can get people to really participate in this, hoping that it will really come about to bring about the change, to bring the church up to, this time, this century. I don't know if you've heard of Ilia Delio, the Franciscan nun. She teaches at Georgetown, brings science and religion together all the time.
A Franciscan ecological theologian.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to know her. This is wrong.
Delio, she's wonderful.
She's one, but her new book, Hours of the Universe,
Yeah.
she says, we need to step out of medieval theology into a current theology. So I think Pope Francis is trying to do that. He's trying to bring that about. So yeah.
And he's trying to create a space, I think, where all the voices can be heard. That I mean, literally, he really wants all the contexts, groupings, whatever, where all the voices can be heard. But what's interesting is it's not so much a forum for one voice to be pitted against the other. So it's not so much a forum where, like how the media might frame it, these things. Well, did the liberals win or did the conservatives win? He doesn't want that kind of pull. He wants to hear all voices, and to let all the voices and viewpoints fill us up to the brim, and then to kind of wait, prayerfully wait, almost a Pentecostal waiting for this filled up to the brim with all the partial truths and opinions that we have, to not having to resolve them and anybody to be victorious, but to allow them to be in a larger holding kind of space, believing that if we allow the Spirit to hover over that, there will be a kind of overflow in which we will have a sense of harmony of all of these voices that we cannot create ourselves. It's really a trust in a Spirit created kind of almost Pentecostal harmony that's larger than all the individual voices, that can get trapped in this oppositional toxic energy that we move in our culture.
Right at the very beginning of his opening remarks from this weekend, right, maybe just second paragraph down, he said that the Holy Spirit is the protagonist
Yeah,
of the synod.
yeah,
And if there is no Holy
Yeah.
Spirit, there will be no
no
synod.
synod.
That gives me chills.
Isn't that
It's
amazing?
amazing. It's
It
really,
gives me chills.
Yes,
I mean, I think even more than being like Vatican II, it's like Pentecost, really.
yes,
It's
that's true.
It's a
Right.
gathering of voices, divergent voices that doesn't need anyone to dominate the other. In fact, needs them not to dominate, and a lot,
To
but
listen.
together in a kind of open, prayerful,
Prayerful.
receptive place that the Spirit can bring about a surprising harmony of all these different things that will release potentiality, creative potentialities we never could have imagined just staying in our conflictual partial voices.
Right.
But that it really does depend on the Spirit to be present and active and bringing about this kind of larger harmony that we cannot create just out of our own egocentric energies.
This is perfect because part of this class on the sacred story is about, I'm like, the Catholic Church has the potential to be a prophetic witness in
Right.
terms of an ethic of care or an ethic of creation care.
Right.
And of course, because of Pope Francis, I'm like, he's our lead. He's
Right.
the vision. So it just seems, I love the 3 words that came up at the Pax Christi gathering. It was, what is it? Encounter. Those 3 words Uncle Chris said.
Listening and discernment.
Encounter, listening, and discernment.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very different from the way that in the media, or like you said, the way that ideologies are posed against each other. But to really have discernment and listening is, I would say, is prophetic. And
Right.
is,
I agree.
so everyone's voice really needs to be at this table.
That's
Absolutely.
right. Mm-hmm.
Every voice.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't rush some kind of human-made synthesis or resolution or victory of one over the other, or an imposing of one partial viewpoint imposed on another. It's really looking for a larger kind of solution or harmony or creative solution that we cannot just generate inside our heads or inside of our conflicting positions. There's something very radically spiritual and prayerful about this, that this is something that we're invited to allow to happen more than achieve or make.
Right.
Or, willful. This is something beyond willfully synthesizing a bunch of divergent voices. It's really allowing the Spirit to take them up into a larger kind of unity, which we never would have expected. He says that solutions at key moments in our lives and in the church, solutions give themselves to us by a kind of graceful overflowing, but that we have to allow that to operate. And if we come with 2 ideologically fixed black and white worldviews, it gets in the way of the Spirit offering solutions which are larger than those polarized positions. And if you look at our world and our country and our politics and our church, we see we get in this paralysis of polarized kind of position and counterposition. Pope Francis really believes that through the Spirit's help, there's new avenues to create a new future that's larger than those polarized positions that we get stuck in and just kind of predictably repeat themselves again and again.
Mm-hmm. Can't hear you.
Boy,
You're muted.
You're muted.
Okay.
Nope,
Muted.
you're muted.
Muted.
What? Okay. I can tell you're really excited about this, and
Yes.
you're very invested in the Catholic Church. Are you excited about this because in the past it hasn't been this way? Or like, what is making you just so excited? Is it just Pope Francis's vision? Or like, what is it that's like?
Oh, You want to answer?
No, go
Or
ahead.
am I wrong? Is that not the best question to ask?
No,
You just seem really excited.
That's true.
I am excited because I think we've seen the church just really struggling of late to relate to the people, to figure out how is the church, what's the best way for the church to be in today's world, and so I'm hoping and counting on that Pope Francis is being led by the Holy Spirit to do this, to surface the needs that the church can then respond to. You know, I'm not being Pollyannish. It's going to be a struggle, and you know, I remember when Vatican II happened, and you know, I was a young mother, and I just remember people grumbling and complaining because they didn't like what was happening, and you know, I remember they didn't like receiving communion in the hand, and they didn't like it when the priest turned around and or we were saying mass in English. You know, there was, because people just have a really hard time with change. You know,
Right. I was going to say that.
Yeah, we get set in our ways, and they're comfortable and they're familiar, but often those ways aren't providing the needs that are that people have, and so there needs to be change. And so it's been what, 55 years or something like that since or 50 years since the Vatican II, and so okay, yeah, that's half a century. That's a little over a generation. It's time to begin to listen to the people and begin what does the, and I'm excited also because it's worldwide. You know, this COVID, I think brought me to this awareness of being one in the world, you know, being one in the world, and so that, you know, the little villages and little remote villages in Africa or South America or any of the Asian or wherever, India, wherever, are struggling with COVID the same as we are. And so, you know, the churches in those remote places are struggling, you know, and so it's like we may get a chance, will get a chance. I'm going to be positive. We'll get a chance to hear the voices, to hear what those people and in our own country, our own culture, hear the, you know, what are people wanting, what are people desiring from the church, and how they want the church to be. I think it will no longer just be the clerics delivering to the people in the pews, but that there needs to be real participation, real sense of community and coming together in order to be church.
I think more people would come back to the church if that was the focus.
Yes, I do too.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have left the church. It's easier to leave the church when you have, you know, when you have divergent opinions. But if you're saying, I feel as if that people in your families have different opinions, but they're still your family. Because I see the church, I see the church as a family. So we're not going to agree on everything, but if we're going to be discerning, encountering, that means that we need to, and the Spirit is involved. It just takes it to another level.
No, I agree. Right.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, like in terms of like Fowler's stages of spiritual development, what gives me hope and enthusiasm, I feel like Pope Francis is initiating a kind of shift from a conventional level of faith development in the church toward a more post-conventional level of development. You know, the more conventional level of development is that truth flows from the top down and from the outside in. Whereas as you move beyond the conventional stage, the truth starts to come from the bottom up and from the inside out, rather than the outside in. So there's a kind of shift toward a deeper kind of spiritual authenticity, a kind of spiritual autonomy and authenticity that I think he senses that the whole collective body of the church is ready for this step to another level of spiritual development, not just individually, but collectively as a church. And he's going to risk, I think, allowing room for the Spirit to bring that to birth in our world. So that's very exciting to be at that kind of shift point, pivot point. And I really do think Pope Francis is inspired by the Spirit. You know, I have that sense. And the fact that he chose the name of Francis is one of my favorite saints. I do a play on Saint Francis, so I'm very invested in the whole Franciscan vision. I really have great hopes that this will be a period of accelerated spiritual maturation.
Right.
That
I was
I
going to
think
use that word.
he's inviting us to create an environment which allows an accelerated spiritual maturation and evolution and transformation to happen with the Spirit's help.
Right.
You know, I want to say that I feel as if that Pope Francis is kind of, because as a professor, I want to say he's like the ultimate teacher, because in the classroom often, you know, it's one thing when it's the banking model of education, which is parallel, you're saying, to the first stages of Fowler. But when you're able to hold the classroom in the midst of, like, you don't know, different diverging opinions, but you're able to hold it.
Yes.
And not be, and be able to be at peace.
Yes.
With that whole, whatever that looks like.
Yes, to not have to.
And we have Francis as our guide. And so I feel like we're in good hands. Right.
I think so. And, you know, I think that he believes, he doesn't think, we're often feel like we get pressured to move things too quickly to a premature closure around a black and white set of answers. And he's willing to allow a space that doesn't force a closure to happen too quickly until all the voices are heard. And then the Spirit allows a synthesis larger than any one of those voices could have ever achieved on their own. It's a whole different spiritual vision that he's inviting us into, and a whole different level of spiritual maturation that he's inviting the whole church into. So it's a big deal, I think.
No, it is a huge deal. So I'm glad that you were able to at least introduce us to it. And so hopefully the students in this class can also ask their priests and parish councils, how involved are they already in the synod? And if they are not, how can they participate in it as well?
Exactly. Yes, I think we need to be, if it isn't happening, then we need to be asking for it to happen.
Yeah. We need to take some doors, I think.
Yes.
What did you say?
We need to knock on some doors.
We need to take the church back.
That's it. Take the church
Is that
back.
what it is?
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us about the synod, and I look forward to participating more in these different discussions.
Right, and I hope your students get as excited about it as we are.
Yay! I'm excited too.
All right.
Thank you for letting us share our enthusiasm with you and